I got the feeling in my heart that I knew Nick was gone.
We have to hand it to the criminal. A conscious effort was made to conceal this crime from everyone.
Little did we know how gruesome, how terrifying, how sinister and dark this case was going to become.
I can't even believe that somebody could do this to a human being.
I don't know if they thought they were outsmarting us. You start questioning, is he really here?
He was a control freak, master manipulator.
This case never gets solved if it's not for incredible outside-the-box thinking.
Nick was missing for a year. That's a lot of time to get rid of a body.
On February 9th of 2017, the Massillon Police Department was contacted by the Barberton Police Department that is located just northwest of us, and they advised that a Nick Stein, a 25-year-old male, was possibly missing, and they wanted us to do a welfare check in our area. A woman named Paula Klein called the Barberton Police Department almost in an emergency state, believing that Nicholas Stein was missing and possibly harmed.
It's very hard to convince a police officer or even a detective that a 25-year-old boy is gone. Not that he's ran away, not that he's missing because he wants to be. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I can show you text messages every day. I can show you phone calls every day. Nick was just like my second son. When my son Gunnar got sick with brain cancer, most children, they just walk away because they fear the sick child. But Nick was his biggest fan. Nick kept him laughing, playing video games, hung out with him like he was just a normal kid. He never gave up on Gunnar, who is still alive today, and he's 31 years old. Nick had a heart of gold, would do anything for anybody.
We learned Nick came from a challenged background in regards to his family. That being said, probably resilient, looking to do more.
I kept in touch constantly with him, in text messages, on social media, the telephone. He would always call me for advice, and he struggled with just trying to even find a job in the area.
So as an investigator, you first turn to social media, bank accounts, records, phones. All activity had stopped in regards to Nick Stein and his personal life. Nick just disappeared. But we learned he came to Massillon as he met a man named Brian Gentry. Nick believed that he could better his future by working with Brian.
Nick told me he wasn't making any money, and he said, Brian's giving me some work. I said, oh, I know this guy, I don't trust him. But he believed everything Brian told him.
So we decide we want to interview Brian Gentry.
Brian Gentry was renting a house on 8th Street. He was a decorated war veteran who fought 4 tours in Afghanistan before he was ultimately discharged from the military after suffering severe injury.
Him and his girlfriend, Kristen Lane, they decided they wanted to start a tree trimming business with Nick, to cut trees in the summer and to plow snow in the winter. And with it being seasonal work, they decided it would be best to save gas money, to save time, that Nick just move in with them.
The couple had 3 small children living in the house with them, and then also another roommate, Carl Spencer, an old friend of Brian Gentry's from middle school.
Brian took charge of the house. He was the ringmaster. They were very cooperative, invited us in, answered our questions.
When we first arrived at the location, everything looked normal. When interviewed, the occupants of the house stated that Nick Stein had left on Wednesday, February 1st, and had not been seen since. They had been the last people that were known to have seen Nick Stein before he was reported missing. On February 9th,
the residents there were worried about Nick and his whereabouts. But Brian said that one of the reasons why Nick may have wanted to leave Massillon was because he possibly owed some people money.
Carl Spencer had stated that he remembered Nick Stein had left the house and was going downtown to a local restaurant and was getting a ride back to Barberton. We did spend hours looking for video footage from local residents, business, and ultimately there was no video located. This information provided by Carl Spencer ultimately leads you to question, was he trying to be deceptive and mislead investigators? So Carl was asked to come to the station for further interview. During our interviews, we're looking for potential signs that he already attempting to deceive us, and that deception can run very deep.
Have you ever been in trouble before? There for this meeting? Before. It was a 5 years ago, like that. Cool.
As a detective, you're digging deeper into that individual. You're always looking to get to the truth as fast as you can.
How was everybody when Nick left? Like, how was the vibes in the house? Well, it seemed okay. Were you able concerned or? See your tail. Okay.
Through Carl's interview, investigators found out that the 8th Street address was not your typical residence. There was a lot going on behind the scenes. Apparently, there was an argument, and Nick got upset and left that evening.
Do you know what the argument was about? Not fully. I'm assuming it was whatever their relationship was. Like they had some whatever you call that, some threesome? Yeah, threesome. Okay.
Carl Spencer said that Brian would allow Nick to have sex with Kristen, but only if they would ask Brian first before they did so.
Brian was well aware of the sex triangle. But Nick was such a kind-hearted, lovable person. He wanted to find a girlfriend to love him and get married and have a family. He probably treated her better than she'd ever been treated.
Once we found out about this love triangle, we didn't know what dark alleys this was going to take us into.
We look back on those first interviews. A lot of details weren't given, and that's why it was imperative that we return to the residence. And upon further conversation with Kristen Lane, she did state that she was in a relationship with Nick Stein and also Brian, and she said that Nick wanted to have an exclusive relationship with her, and there was an argument. Kristen stated that she was not interested in being in an exclusive relationship and that Nick got upset and left that evening.
Once we hear this, we started wondering, there's way more going on here than just a missing person. When the two guys are sexually active with a single female, then somebody lets their feelings get involved. Bad things tend to happen.
So during questioning, the occupants invited us into the home to have a further look.
When we went into the basement, we had to climb down a ladder. The stairs were missing. I asked Brian about the stairs, and he said that due to his injuries in the Army, the VA recommended that he replace the stairs. So he took them out, and they were going to be replaced shortly. While we're interviewing them, there was a mattress down in the basement that had a stain. So I asked Kristen about this stain, and she said, "Oh no, I spilled cola on the mattress." But if something bad did happen to Nick, I thought to myself, is this evidence? We decided that we were gonna swab this spot and send it off to be tested. After we left that house on 8th Street, Detective Dasman and I, we looked at each other and thought, where's Nick? I'm gonna find Nick one way or another. Little did we know how horrific this case was going to get.
The Massillon Police Department was advised that Nick Stein, a 25-year-old male, was possibly missing from his residence on 8th Street. After we interviewed the occupants of the house, we began to think this was a cat and mouse game. Are these individuals trying to steer you in the wrong direction? And seeing that stain on the mattress certainly sparked interest that it potentially could yield DNA of a victim.
If it was blood, whose blood is it? About a week later, we get the information back that it was not human blood, that it was in fact soda that Kristen had spilled on the mattress, just like she told us.
It's certainly a letdown emotionally, and sometimes you feel like you have to start over at square one.
Without a body, we're like, man, where do we go from here? If in fact Brian or Kristen or Carl did do something to Nick Stein, these people went to great extents to conceal any kind of evidence. At that time, Paula Klein is calling, and I felt motivated by wanting to give her answers.
Calling Detective Sleuts, he's probably thinking I'm crazy. But I was Nick's voice. I was the only voice Nick had. Nick's father passed away in 2008. And then after that, his mother struggled to get on her feet and make it because she hadn't worked for a few years. And it was just him and his brother. So I was like Nick's second mom. My main goal was to find Nick, and I was adamant about it. I just wouldn't let Detective Sleuts stop.
So in the spring, I get a phone call from Nick's brother. He believes Nick made it back home to Barberton.
And he believes that Nick's mother's boyfriend, Andy, was somehow involved with the disappearance.
Nick wanted to take close care and watch over his mother. He wanted to get a job and he wanted to take care of her. Her boyfriend wouldn't allow it. He was so jealous of Nick. When the search was going on for Nick, you would think that her boyfriend would be out looking. Well, he never left the house. And he wouldn't allow Nick's mom to leave the house. He was a very sneaky and conniving person. That's what made me more curious that he might be behind it.
I asked Nick's brother to meet me at a local ice cream shop in Massillon. He hands me 3 pieces of paper he just found that he claims that his mom's boyfriend wrote out and it had some very disturbing comments.
There was one passage that was very disturbing, and it was quoted, "My name will be spoken of and feared for generations. I will bury this bloody crime deep within the earth." Nick's brother stated that he believed, based on those deranged writings, that it was possible that Nick was buried in a wooded area near Nick's mother's home. We then decided to speak to the boyfriend, Andy, and he just said he had a lot going on in his life. He was a dark person and just put things to paper, but those writings were unrelated to the incident that we were investigating.
Even so, we wanted to focus more on Mom's boyfriend. Next, we contacted Barberton Police Department, and they sent out officers to check the area and to look for any disturbances in the dirt or possibly any shallow graves, any kind of sign that there was a body buried in these woods. It's months since anybody's heard from Nick. About this time, we start looking into Nick's disappearance, of not being a missing person, but more of a possible homicide. We try to determine, where's he buried? Whoever was responsible, they're trying to get away with murder.
So at this point, we're coming up on 4 months in the investigation, and we had a true victim, Nick Stein. Friends and family wanted answers. If Nick's mother's boyfriend, Andy, had committed a crime, it's our job to figure out what his involvement was. We felt like maybe there could be something in those woods in Barberton that could help us resolve this case. But you have a lot of ground to cover, you have foliage, you have the lack of witnesses in that area. So it's very difficult to certainly find what you were looking for.
Barberton Police Department sent out officers to check the area, and they were unable to find anything. So that's another dead end.
It was emotional when Detective Slutz would call and tell me that, we looked in the woods, we didn't find him. It would send me downwards, but that's what made me push stronger and never to give up on him. I even asked my mother, who was 72 years old, if she would go around and look in the wooded areas around Barberton. My mother would look and find stuff and send me up pictures and ask me if that was Nick's clothing, Nick's shirts, Nick's shoes. And it never was.
As a police officer, you hit those lows that you go, am I looking in the right direction? If this is a homicide, the people responsible for this went to great lengths to cover this up.
So in the law, there's a concept called corpus delicti, and it means body of the crime. Ultimately, what that means is you have to have more than just words itself or just the claim itself. You have to have tangible evidence that is found, whether it be circumstantial, concrete, or testimonial, and we just didn't have that.
So now we're in the middle of summer. We're not finding any information on Nick. As a detective, you try to separate your personal life from your work, and this one lingered with me. I would stay up at night thinking about who I need to talk to, what can we do different. I didn't want it to end up in the cold case files.
Then we were made aware that Nick's roommate, Brian Gentry, was arrested for receiving stolen property and sent to prison. Although Brian Gentry was incarcerated, Carl Spencer and Kristen Lane are still living in that house together, and she was pregnant. Carl Spencer was the father. Now, there was more than just a love triangle. Carl Spencer was involved with these individuals as well.
Matters of the heart certainly can be a motive for murder. It's one of the oldest ones. If not for greed and money, then love, lust, revenge, or hate.
But at this stage in the case, we knew that there was no proof that a crime had been committed without a body.
At the end of January, we get a call of some abuse or neglect of the children at the house. We did an investigation and got a warrant for Kristen's arrest for child neglect. So she gets arrested and is in the Stark County Jail.
And then a confidential informant contacted me. This confidential informant was someone that I had worked with for several months, and he was reliable.
Once Brian went to prison, Kristen had other people over to the house to continue to party. Kristen had our confidential informant at her house.
So this confidential informant stated that he heard that Nick Stein was buried somewhere in Massillon. However, he was unsure of the location. There are certainly moments as an investigator where you feel that what you've been working on has changed, the mood has changed, it is sinister, and you want to reveal what that is. We knew that we had to go back to that common ground, and that common ground was 8th Street on the southwest side of Massillon.
We go to the house. Carl's moved out. The homeowner is at this house, and we explained to him that there's an investigation going on, and nobody's heard from Nick Stein for a year.
While speaking with the landlord, his son emerged with a black box. As we opened that black box, we found the ashes of a human body.
So I look at this box and I think, where's the name at on this box? Could this be Nick?
Based on the information provided and Nick's last whereabouts being the 8th Street residence, when given the ashes and remains of a human body. At the time, the obvious question was, who was this? Where did these come from? We later found out through Paula Klein that those ashes, in fact, belonged to Nick Stein's father.
Nick's father tragically took his own life when Nick was 17 years of age. And from then on, Nick struggled with trying to find the man that he wanted to grow up to be. His father guidance was no longer there. I knew at that point that Nick was no longer with us here on Earth. I knew that Nick would never leave his father's ashes behind. But I kept saying, keep up the fight, never give up.
Throughout this entire investigation, Kristen has danced around questions pertaining to Nick. And we know that Kristen is in jail at this time. It could be a big break in the case. So I told Detective Dadisman, we need to go over and talk to Kristen at the county jail. I felt like it was the right time because she wanted her 3 kids back. Now is your time to help yourself and help us.
Today is January 30th, 9:40 a.m. To take a swim just to get the bastard, and you are Kristen Lane, correct? Yes. I want to say you're free to go anytime you want.
The challenge of being a detective is obviously working with individuals who are trying to deceive you. They want to take you down that wrong path.
I think you know what we need to tell. All right?
Organizing is still missing.
It is the missing. Okay? And things are starting to come together for us. Okay? And we feel that you know some things, and we just want to put it out there that you can either be part of the problem or you can be part of the solution.
This was a long, drawn-out interview. She was sending us in circles, but she continued to mention Carl Spencer.
So that's what the spirit, because he was there that night, but then we ended up leaving, but came back early the next morning. I don't know if maybe he got something because shortly after that, Carl told us that he liked me, and at the time Brian wanted to try the whole three-person relationship thing.
She shined light onto Carl. She still would not give specific information.
With Carl, do you think if he gets going there, would he marry him or would he bury him?
He's getting.
So after interviewing Kristen, there was certainly a pause or a moment for detectives to wonder if it's possible that Nick Stein was in fact buried on that property this entire time.
We thought, boy, if he's buried in the backyard, this is pretty bold.
There was never any signs of disturbed earth or anything that would give us a motive to believe that there could be potentially a body buried in that yard.
We started thinking, what tools would they need to bury Nick? Are they gonna use just a shovel? That would take a lot of work and a lot of strength to dig a hole deep enough to bury a body in the backyard. I thought to myself, well, maybe they rented an excavator.
We contacted a local business in Massillon, and they did dig through their files, and they were able to locate a receipt, and there was a rental agreement on February 2nd of 2017 of a Kubota backhoe. And the name on that rental agreement was very familiar to us.
And I about had a heart attack.
The receipt provided to us by the manager did in fact say Brian Gentry. And he then provided us a driver's license. And on that driver's license, the picture was Carl Spencer. Our prime suspects in Nick's disappearance clearly become Carl Spencer and Brian Gentry. We reached out to BCI, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and they were asked to provide cadaver dogs at that time. We arrived at the residence to ultimately start digging in that backyard.
It's the first day of February in Northeast Ohio. It's cold. The dogs start hitting in this area. And we dig for hours. And we're not able to find Nick. It was very disappointing. Took a lot of wind out of our sails. You start questioning, is he really here? I told Detective Danisman, we need to go back over and talk to Kristen again. It was an audio interview at the Stark County Jail. Now's your chance to tell us the truth, to save yourself. We show her this picture of us digging in her backyard, And I ask her, what's this picture of?
That's the old house.
What are we doing today?
Taking up the yard. Why?
What do you think? Why? Now's your chance to tell us the truth.
We proceeded to show her the receipt from the rental place, and we just let all this build up so that way she could tell us her story.
I don't know why the excavator was there. I was told it was for some job. I don't ask questions when it comes to that because I don't know anything about that.
We thought, okay, you're not telling us the truth. So I take out this piece of note paper and I draw a diagram of their backyard. I'm gonna do my best artwork here. And I slide it over in front of Kristen. And I slam my pen down. And I say, where's Nick? As a matter of fact, I'm gonna take that off you. And she looks at me. She picks up the pen and she hesitates. And she circles right near this cement pad. After she draws this circle, I tell her, I want you to write in that circle what's there. And she looks at me and she looks down and she proceeds. And it's like darn near in slow motion because of the excitement that I'm feeling inside. So she writes the N, she writes the I, she makes the C. And I'm thinking, hurry up and write that K. And she makes the K. And it was just silence in this interview room. And inside I'm thinking, holy shit, she just told us where Nick is.
Kristen Lane circled a location in the backyard where Nick's body was.
She knows that, hey, we're caught now. It's time to save my own butt.
We had enough probable cause to take a second dig in the backyard. As we dug further into the ground, there was a point where an odor had rised into the air, and there was a black box that was barely visible that had been cracked by the excavator.
The coroner investigator jumps down and looks in this hole, and he goes, there's skeletal remains in there. We were also able to determine that they encased his body in cement within that box, which hampered our investigation the day before with the cadaver dogs being encased in cement. This odor of a decomposing body isn't as strong.
It was a feeling of great relief that we had found what we were looking for, although we had not confirmed that it was Nick Stein yet.
Well, police have not released his name at this point, but we can tell you the remains were taken to the Stark County Coroner's Office. For the second day in a row, BCI agents and police were out here. They were digging up this backyard, and this morning a body was found stuffed in a container right in that area that you're looking at.
The next day, Detective Dassman and I went to the autopsy, seeing this body folded up, basically, and encased in this cube of cement. It was horrifying to see. As the coroner's chiseling the cement away from the body, I thought to myself, nobody deserves to die like this. I mean, there's no other way to describe it except for pure evil. Through fingerprint analysis and dental records, we were able to determine that the remains in that box were the remains of Nick Stein.
when Detective Sleuts called me the morning before they were going in for the last dig. And I knew that I couldn't be there. And I knew that Nick's family wouldn't be there. But that was probably my lowest point, where I couldn't be there when they finally found him.
Even though we had closure for the family, we still didn't end our investigation there.
We had information that Carl Spencer might be in the Marlboro Township area, located east of us about 30 minutes. And detectives located Carl and advised him we had a warrant for murder for his arrest.
And then Carl Spencer told us how the murder of Nick Stein happened.
Okay, so that day, February 1st, Brian and Nick get into an argument, am I correct? What was the argument about?
He had said that vulgar comment to Kristen.
That make Brian mad, or what?
Yes, that infuriated.
But what's he say down there?
He said that he wanted to beat his ass.
Okay.
Because he didn't think that was right for him to say that. Nick decided to lay down on the couch.
Okay.
He had taken like 3 Ambien.
Okay.
And he passed out. Then we went upstairs and grabbed duct tape out of the mudroom, and he started tying him up. He ripped him off the couch, and he punched him for a good 10-15 minutes. He drug him to the house, into the mudroom, put him at the top of the steps and told me to push him down the steps.
So did you push him down the steps?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I was so upset and sick to my stomach, I went out the back door to puke off the back deck. I come back in about 5 minutes later. Nick was drugged further into the basement, and he was dead. And then from there, we proceeded to use a tote. He emptied a tote out. We put him in a tote, carried him up outside. Brian already had concrete there. He poured the concrete in the box.
Ultimately, the 3 individuals pled guilty as opposed to having trials for their guilt or innocence. Kristen Lane pled guilty to abuse of a corpse, obstructing official business, and tampering with evidence, and received a 4-year sentence. In his connection with his testimony against Brian, Carl takes a plea deal and is sentenced to 11 years. Brian Gentry was sentenced to life in prison with parole at 15 years for the murder of Nicholas Stein. Sometimes in our profession, we have to hand it to the criminal. Where Nick was buried was not corroborated by the dogs, and particularly because he was encased in cement and 8 feet below in February. And Brian Gentry has a background in landscaping and heavy machinery, and he hit Nick in an unwitting neighborhood in an unwitting town. He made a conscious effort to hide this body in plain sight. Quite honestly, he may never have been found if but for some incredible outside-the-box thinking.
Brian Gentry was very smug. Felt like he was a little more intelligent than detectives were. You know, it motivated me more. It's like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out and you're going to prison for it.
They released Nick's body to me. At one point, there was little talk from some friends that they thought Nick's body needed to be buried. And I put my foot down to him and told him absolutely not. Nick would not be buried in the ground again. And I was able to have him cremated. It's when we took the move to buy 2 Tree of Life urns, and we put Nick in one and his father in the other, and they match. Then I decided to have a memorial for Nick. I set his urn box on my lap, and I cried like a baby.
Kid comes up missing. You're scared, you're worried.
No one would have believed that anyone would have gone to such lengths to hide a body.
There aren't words that can describe that feeling.
He took my wife, my child. I lost everything.
Her killer thought he was gonna get away with it.
Dig a hole and put her in it, or just cover her up.
Like some sort of Vegas magic act, he made the body disappear.
What better way to hide a body than in a cemetery?
And we came to the sewer drain. There were her remains, 18 years later.
In one barrel was the torso, and the other barrel was the head.
She was located encased in cement in a remote desert area.
He threw her into the mine shaft, too.
The come to Jesus moment is when everything is on the table, and you really have to wonder what happened.